Thanks for joining us online today. If you've been impacted by this ministry and have a story to share of how God is working in your life, we would love to hear it. Send an email to amen@anchorpoint.tv. Also, you can help bring messages just like this one to others who need to hear the hope and love of Jesus by investing today at anchorpoint.tv/give. Now, we hope you enjoy today's message.
Today, we're going to continue this Like a Boss series that we've been in for the last 5 weeks. Today will actually be the 6th week in this series, and I'm glad to be here with you. And for the sake of time, I can't get us all caught up on all 5 weeks, but there is no shortage of ways for you to do that. Our Anchor Point podcast, you can watch these that we stream live to Facebook, the entire service from beginning to end, or you can go to anchorpoint.tv and watch all those past messages. I highly encourage you to do that to get caught up on this series. It's been incredible so far. Anybody enjoying this series, the Like a Boss? Okay, I've been loving this series, and we're going to continue with it today and dive deep into it. And we're going to look at a section of Elisha's story, our main character in this series, that this part of his story kind of seems unbefitting at first, but upon further notice and kind of looking deeper into it, I think we're going to find that it could be very difference-making, the principle that we're going to learn about today. And so today's message I have titled, I Don't Need Permission. Look to your neighbor and tell him. I want you to tell him a little attitude. Say, hey, I don't need your permission. I don't need, say yo, I don't need yo permission. I don't need your permission. Has anyone ever told you, maybe you were talking to them and you told them something that you did or something that you do, and they're like, ooh, I don't do that. And you're like, oh, well, I do, and good thing I don't need your permission. I'm sorry you don't do that, but I do, and I don't need your permission to do it. This is sort of like a pet peeve of mine. It's like some people live as if they need to give you their permission, all right? You know anybody like this? And there's something I've gotten into a habit of saying, and the Lord's working on me in this area, but my wife will attest to this. I say this a lot. I have a little phrase that I like to use. I'll say, I'm a grown man. I'm a grown man. I'm going to do what I want, right? That's probably one of the best parts about being an adult. I say that like I just turned 18 or something, but one of the best things about being an adult is you can do whatever you want. At 10 o'clock at night, you want to go get some ice cream? Who's going to stop you, right? You don't need permission, right? And I'll be like talking to Jesse or just somebody, any adult in a conversation, and be like, I'm blah, 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 I'm doing this. They're like, well, I don't think you need to do that. And I'll be like, I'm a grown man. I don't need permission to do anything. And I guess I'm really just cashing in on the teenage dream of, I can't wait till I get out of the house. I can do whatever I want. Anybody have a teenager say that to you before? Okay. I hear that with our students all the time. I can't wait till I graduate and get out of my parents' house. I'm like, listen, it's not, you're always, I tell my students this, you're always going to be under authority. You are, okay? It's just the truth. You're always going to be under authority. You're never going to get out from under it. And how you get under authority determines how you can have authority, but that's a different message for a different day. Even my daughter is learning. She's 3, not a teenager yet, thank God. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to them, but she's also learning as well. We're in a season right now where we're having to be really stern and make sure there is a line drawn between who's in charge, my wife and I, and who is not, my 3-year-old daughter. And we're in a season right now because we were actually over at a friend's house on Friday night, and she did this, and I told him I was going to talk about it. But I'll be having a conversation with my wife and mother-in-law or just any adult in general, and my daughter will come up and be like, hey, Dad, I need a snack. And so I'll have to correct her, and I'll be like, honey, I'm talking right now. Please don't interrupt. When I'm done, I'll give you permission to talk. And inevitably, if you're a parent, you know how this works. She will use my tactics against me. Okay, this is guerrilla warfare. And a day later, a week later, sometimes that same day, she'll be talking and I'll have to stop and correct her, and she'll be like, hey, Dad, I'm talking. When I'm done, I'll give you permission To which I respond, oh, no, ma'am. That is not how this works. I will talk. I do not need your permission. Isn't it a funny thing? Permission is a funny thing because a lot of our lives revolve around permission. Giving, receiving permission in our jobs, in our marriages, in our parenting, in whatever it may be, there's always permission being requested and always permission being given. And it goes back to the teenager wanting to be able to do whatever they want, but the truth is you'll always be under authority. You always will be like, well, what if I own my own company? It's like, well, if you follow Jesus, you're always going to be under his authority. So there you go, Mr. Smart Guy. So the permission is such a pivotal part of our lives. And as a matter of fact, we recently went to summer camp, and we took 50 of our students and leaders from Anchor Point Youth here. We went up outside of Birmingham, had an incredible time, as we always do. But when we go on those, it's like I'm the point person. I'm the person in charge. I'm the person responsible. Somebody gets hurt, like, it's on me. Like, we had a student, like, cut his toe at the Galleria on the way back, and, like, I'm the one talking to the police officer, giving him my driver's license, like, so I'm the person. I'm the one in charge. And we get to camp, and this year I got to be what is called the Dean of Boys' Cabins, which simply means this. There's 600 people there in the week that we're there, and they split the guys and girls lodging, obviously, and all the guys are in a couple of cabins that sleep, they have 4 different rooms. Each room sleeps like 35 or whatever, and so they have them split up. And I'm the Dean of Boys' Cabins. I have a master key to the boys' cabins, which means it's my responsibility, my duty to lock those cabins during service, because nobody's supposed to be in there. They're supposed to be at service, and to unlock them after so everybody can get back in. Also, one of my main responsibilities is to do the lights out check. Every night after service, they announce a lights out time. Hey, lights in the cabin should be out at this time. And it's my duty after that time has passed to go around and make sure everybody is compliant with that lights out time. One night, I'm walking through doing my usual rounds, checking to make sure lights are out. And a camp staffer comes zooming up on his golf cart. He says, hey! I was like, yeah? He said, it's after lights out. You need to be in your cabin. Me? Yeah. Everybody's in their cabins. You need to be in yours. I said, well, I'm the Dean of Boys' Cabins, and I'm doing my lights out check, so I'll go back to my cabin when I'm done. He said, oh, okay, and just zooms off. And as he zoomed off under my breath, I said, I'm a grown man. I'll go to bed when I want to. I don't need your permission. And it's funny how sometimes we want to throw off this idea of permission. We don't want anyone to really tell us what to do, when to do it, how to do it, right? And we see this a lot. I see this a lot when it comes to parenting. Like, you ain't going to tell me how to raise my kids. But then we'll post a picture of us crushing it when it comes to parenting for people to like and approve. See, we don't really like permission, but we really do seek permission. We just don't call it permission. We call it approval. We call it approval instead, right? We want people to, well, it's almost like we have to post about what we're doing to get approval from the people around us to live our life. We almost want people to approve of us and give us permission to live our life and be who we're supposed to be. And you may say, well, I don't do that. I don't really care about social media. But it's odd because we all do it. If you don't do it on social media, you'll do it in another avenue, some way, somehow. I've seen this in some of the most unlikely of places. As a matter of fact, I get to do weddings. I actually get to do a lot of weddings. But I got to do a really special wedding last year, at the end of last year. And this was unlike any wedding I've ever been to. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, it was on a family estate, which should tell you a lot. I mean, they were serving like bacon wrap filet, mignon, like for receptions. I mean, it was legit. And so I got to, go to the rehearsal dinner and meet the family and things like that. And it was really, really great. And I got to meet the grandfather of the groom. And this gentleman was a business owner. The wedding was on his estate. And he was incredibly well-to-do and well-off, didn't want for anything, had a car collection. I mean, all this just incredible thing. The bride and groom had 2 cars to choose from as they exited after their wedding. One if it was raining, one if it was not. Both of them were very rare and expensive cars, and so they had some options because one was a convertible, one wasn't. So if it's raining, you get the one that's not a convertible. If it isn't, you get one. So anyway, he was really, and so I get to talk to this guy, and he's an incredibly nice man, and really hospitable, and was just very grateful that I was able to be there, do the wedding, and I was too. But all he talked about the entire time was not about what he had or what he was able to do or his stories or things like that. He talked about somebody that he knew that was more well off than him. And he talked about how much that person liked what he had and how much that person admired what he did. And so it may not be on social media, but it's still looking for some approval, a.k.a. permission. Look to your neighbor and say, I don't need permission. I don't need permission. And I want to look at a small section of Elisha's story today that I think will give us a different perspective on permission. As a matter of fact, we're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 6, and we're only going to read just a few verses today. Now, if you've been with us for the past couple weeks, you know that is a big departure from where we've been. Last time I preached, it was like 37 verses. Today we're reading 7. Somebody say hallelujah, okay? And it is on your outlines. It will be on the screens, and I want to read it to us. We seen Elisha last week kind of meet Naaman and cure his disease, and we saw this incredible miracle, and Pastor Todd did an incredible, it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, actually. And we kind of saw Elisha do that. Now he has moved on a little bit and kind of to a different season of his life, which we'll talk about here. 2 Kings chapter 6, starting in verse 1. It says this, the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, please notice that the place where we live under your supervision is too small for us. Elisha has moved into a season of his life where he is beginning to train and teach apprentices. Right? This was actually very common in this day and age. When you started going to school, you didn't go to learn your addition tables and multiplication. You started studying the scriptures. And if you showed yourself to be above average once you got to a certain age, you could then be taken on by a rabbi or a prophet or a priest and taught to be one yourself. Elisha has a school of ministry now, okay? He healed the Shunammite woman's son, brought him back to life, okay? And then he got this huge reputation. Naaman had heard about him, right? The prophet in Israel, and he wrote a book, about Sneezy Sam and all that stuff. And so he's on a revival tour now, and he's started the school where he's sort of kind of like the headmaster and the professor at the same time. So he's teaching these sons of the prophets to be a prophet just like he is. So verse 2, they say this. So this place where we're staying with you is too small. Please let us go to the Jordan where we can each get a log and can build ourselves a place to live there. And these guys are kind of grown their current dormitories or their cabins, right? Cabin check, cabin dean. And after the resurrection of the Shunammite woman's son, he's very well known. So he has this college, he has these people, he's teaching, he's kind of being that mentor now that Elijah was to him. And so he says this, they ask, hey, we need to go to the Jordan River, we need to build ourselves a place to live there. Go, he said, verse 3. Then one said, please come with us. He says, okay, I'll come. So he went with them, and when they came to the Jordan, they cut down trees. They went to the Jordan River, which if you have been with us through this whole story, you kind of understand the Jordan River is really, really neat. Before Elijah was taken to heaven, him and Elisha traveled from a place called Gilgal to the Jordan River. When Elijah was taken up to heaven, Elisha grabbed the cloak that fell off of him and he struck the Jordan River. After that, last week, we saw Elisha tell Naaman to go do 7 cannonballs in the what? Jordan River. Very significant. You should read your Bible, okay? It's really interesting. It's really, really neat. So he said, let's go with it. So he went with them, and they came to the Jordan, and they cut down trees. Makes sense. You need wood to build a building. So verse 5, as one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head fell into the water, and he cried out, oh, my master, that wasn't mine. I borrowed that. Then the man of God asked, well, show me where it went into the water. And when he showed him the place, the man of God cut a piece of wood, threw it there, and made the iron float back to the surface. Then he said, and I imagine Elisha, kind of like he did with the Shunammite woman, chest back, shoulders back, chest out. He says, pick it up. It's just floating there on the surface. So he reached out and he took it. And as I read this, I thought to myself, I have no idea how this would apply to everyday life. No clue. I mean, I guess if you have enough faith, or happen to know a prophet that's a friend, you can retrieve your fishing lures off a sunken log that you snagged them on. I don't know. I don't really know how an iron axe head floating in water. Maybe get your edge back. Okay, I thought about naming the message that. Get your edge back, or don't lose your head, or something like that. But as I dig deeper into this story, I realized that maybe the miracle wasn't the point. And maybe today what God's wanting to tell us is found elsewhere. And as I dug deeper, I really found that the principle we're going to pull today is not found in the floating axe head. It's found before the axe head is even borrowed. And the truth that I want to talk about today is found in 2 Kings 6, verses 2 and 3. We'll throw it back up on the screens. I want you to read this underlined part with me, and here's where we're going to be. Please let us go to the Jordan, where we can each get a log and build ourselves a place to live there. Go, he said. Verse 3. Then one said what? Please come with your servants. It's funny to me that these students, these sons of the prophet, would ask the prophet to come with them, because they did not ask him to come and do the labor. I promise you that. He was not going to. They didn't ask him to come so he can demonstrate the 7 cannonballs that cured leprosy. They didn't ask him to come for that reason. They first asked his permission, and then they requested his presence. Maybe today, you don't need God's permission, you just need his presence. Maybe you don't need God's permission, you need his presence. Look to your neighbor, say, I don't need permission. I don't need permission. Listen, comparatively, I know that the amount of time I've been following Jesus is a drop in the bucket compared to some of you. I understand. But some of the things that one of the things specifically I think that I really began to learn over this 15 years that I've followed Jesus is that maybe I don't think God is concerned about what we do as much as we think he is. Let me clarify that. I don't think God is super concerned about where you work as long as you make sure you honor him in all you do. Like Jesus chose fishermen and tax collectors as his closest people, as his disciples. They couldn't be more different. All he cared about is whether they wanted to follow him, whether they wanted to be with him. I don't think God is as concerned about where you go to college as he is about how you share his love with those that you go to college with. Jesus picked dropouts. We just talked about it, right? If you were a fisherman, tax collector, whatever, it means you dropped out of rabbi school. You weren't smart enough to study the scriptures. But Jesus didn't pick priests or prophets or pastors. He picks tax collectors, fishermen. Matter of fact, that tax collector, Matthew, his trade was to be a trader and work for the Roman government that had conquered the Jews, but Jesus still chose him because he didn't care so much about what he did. He cared about whether or not he wanted to follow him, whether he wanted to be with him. And I think we spend so much time and energy on focusing on getting God's permission and then leaving him behind to pursue a position. That's really what we want out of permission, isn't it? We want permission to make sure we're in the right position. In the right position in our career, right position in our family, right position in our marriage, right position in our parenting, right position in our success, right position in approval. I think we spend so much time focusing on getting God's permission that we neglect his presence. Tell me if this prayer sounds familiar. God, I can't stand the job I'm in right now. God, I need you to give me something else. I need your permission to quit this one and move on to something else. God, I don't know where to send my child to school at. God, I need your permission I need you to show me where to go, where to send them. God, I don't know if I need to expand my business or not. God, I need you to show me whether or not I should. And we focus so much on getting God's permission so we can be in the right position. We want to make sure we're in the correct lane on this journey. We want to make sure we're in the correct position to get to the right destination. You know what sounds way better? God, I can't stand this job. I just need your presence to help me be who you've called me to be and love who you've called me to love. That sounds so much better. God, I don't know where to send my child to school, but I know if you're with me, you'll never lead me wrong. God, I don't know whether to expand my business or not, but I know if I honor you in everything I do in that business, you will bless everything I do. God, I need your presence. And that's what I really stumbled upon, because permission is all about position. Permission is, we want to receive permission so that we're in the right position. But the result of permission is not necessarily the right position. Just because you have permission doesn't mean you'll be in the right position. So here's what I want you to write down today. 1.1.0, and I want to drill this down into your heart. This is what I want to pull out of this story, and I believe the floating axe head is an incredible miracle, and we see Elisha actually do double the miracles that Elijah did. Because when Elijah left, he said, what do you want from me? And Elisha said, give me a double portion of your anointing. So he got it. We see double the recorded miracles, and this floating axe head is one of them, and it's incredible. It just goes to show you that nothing is outside of God's ability and God's reach. But here's what I want you to take from this story today. Listen, God's presence will position you. It's God's presence that positions you. We live this life based on position. We're asking for permission, but it's really to be in the right position. I want to achieve the next position at my job. I want to achieve the next position in this next season of my life. I want to achieve the next position. I want to be married. Right? I want to be in the next position. I want to be in this school. I want to be in this income range. We are all obsessed with position, and we focus it around getting permission. God, I need you to give me this. God, I need you to show me this. But at the end of the day, it's not permission that's going to give you the position. It's God's presence. You have got to get God's presence. God told Abraham to go. Didn't matter where. It did not matter where. Because as long as Abraham went, God said, I will bless the whole world through you. I will bless the whole world. The result of permission isn't necessarily the right position. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 6, he says, everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. I'm here to tell you today that I think God has given you his permission. You already have his permission. It's yours. Everything is permissible for you, but not everything is beneficial. How do you tell the difference between what is permissible and what is beneficial? God's presence. God will never lead you astray if you follow his leading. The only place, listen, there's only one place that God cannot move, church. One place that God cannot move, and that's second place. God will not move in second place. He cannot move in second place. It's not how he works. And we've been prioritizing God's permission and giving his presence a back seat. We say, God, as long as I got the green light, I'm ready to go. God, give me the green light and I'm going to go. And then we take off and we leave God's presence behind us. And some of us are living life with God's permission. You have it. Everything is permissible for you. You're living life with God's permission, but we're puzzled as to why we're not positioned for his blessing. It's because we're missing his presence. Tell me, there's no way you can disagree with me. This world needs more of God's presence. Where does it start? With his church, with his people. We are to carry God's presence into this world. But we can't do it if we're focused on his permission only. God's given you permission. Everything he has is yours. The father said to the prodigal son, not the prodigal son, but his brother, he's like, listen, everything I have is yours. You've been with me. It's all available to you. It's yours. It's for you. You got God's permission. And a lot of times I see we'll make a decision and then ask for God's approval. We ask for forgiveness instead of permission. But the problem is God doesn't work like that. He's not going to bless a decision he wasn't involved in, where his presence is. We should pursue the giver over the gift. Pursue the provider over the provision. So let me ask you this. In what ways have you been asking for God's permission when you should have been seeking his presence? Listen, I think it's important, like, don't get me wrong, okay? If you get pulled over this week, please don't tell the officer, well, Pastor, my church said I don't need permission. I'll go however fast I want. Please, okay, don't misconstrue it here, okay? I don't think it's on God's top 10 list where you go to eat lunch. I don't think it's on his top 10 list what house you buy. I think God's more concerned about how you follow him. And if you follow him, he'll never lead you to a dead end. He'll never lead you to a place where you don't have permission already. God's presence precedes his permission. You know, if God is with you, you already have his permission. It's a hack, it's a life hack, it's a shortcut. If you will just pursue God's presence, you don't even have to worry about permission. You rule it out. What ways have you been asking for God's permission when you should have been seeking his presence? Think about Elisha and the sons of the prophets. They asked for his permission, but then they requested his presence. What would have happened if he had not been there? You know, the son of the prophets, the axe head went into the water, and he said, oh, it was borrowed. And that's because somebody like that, an apprentice, you know, if you're a college student, you know you ain't got no money, right? You're broke. But he didn't have the means, because an axe was a pretty expensive thing, a pretty expensive tool back then. He didn't have the means to buy one. Certainly didn't have the means to replace it. And that's why he was so distraught when he lost it. If they had just asked for Elisha's permission, the axe head would still be at the bottom of the river. They may have built a place for them to live, and it may have been fine, it worked out. But the provision would have been possible without his presence, to get back that which was lost. What have you lost in your life because you just got the green light and felt like you had permission, but you left behind God's presence? I want you to think about it. Don't think about it from a perspective of, oh man, I know somebody who should sure hear this. Think about it in your own life, in your marriage, in your parenting, in your job, and your finances, and your personal emotions. God, that was something I prayed this morning before I got on the stage. God, it's something I do. It's a little routine I have. Like, God, don't let me follow my feelings. Let me follow what I know. And it's God's Holy Spirit that will remind me of that in the moment. You may feel one way, but God says something different. You don't need permission to parent your kids. You need God's presence. You don't need permission to succeed at that job or go to another one. You need God's presence.